Now, at a budget hearing today at the South Carolina State House, Rutherford attacked Mark Keel, the chief of the South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, told him he wasn't doing his job. In fact, Rutherford went even further than that. He said that South Carolina lawmakers should take money from Keel's agency and put it toward mental health, literally cut the budget of law enforcement at a time when violent crime in South Carolina is at an all-time high. Let's take a look at what happened at that hearing today in Columbia.
To me, you all sound like the clerk at Blockbuster saying, well, if people would just buy more VCRs and buy more DVD players, then we could rent more DVDs. And over the years, that trend just kept dying out. They weren't buying DVD players, and Blockbuster just kept saying, well, you know, it's going to come back, and people, they love coming in here, and they weren't seeing the problem. And to me, you all are exactly that. And let me just give a little caveat. Your people are some of the best in the business. And, you know, I deal with them all over the place. I've talked to you about that. I've dealt with shootings and murders and all kind of, and your people are some of the best in the business. And I deal with FBI agents and DEA agents, and I would put SLED agents up against any of them. And yes, they do need more money.
Yes, y'all need more money. Yes, y'all need more money. Obviously, back in the studio now, we're recapping this exchange, but we'll stick a pin in that. We'll stick a pin in that because that's going to come up here in just a second. Let's get back to what the minority leader had to say.
We now recognize, because we have evidence-based practice, we have digital technology that comes to us faster than ever before, that while the mental health issue is not something you can solve, it's what we can solve. Because we cannot give you all more money that you're asking for because you're responding, as you said, and give it to DMH so that we can fix it on the outset and it doesn't happen. And that's where we, on Ways and Means, constantly have to balance whether we're giving enough to you, but also what everyone seems to be acknowledging now is that we're not giving enough to mental health. And if we took from you and gave more to mental health, could we prevent more of these crimes? And if the answer is yes, then you shouldn't get it.
So wait a minute. Who are these four Republicans watching this? Okay, Representative Rutherford's not even a member of this panel. He doesn't even have a vote. These four Republicans sitting off to the side have literally invited him in to just waylay on the chief of the state law enforcement division, accusing him of not doing his job. Now let's look at the numbers here. Over the last 7 budget cycles, including this one, SLED has asked the Republican-controlled General Assembly for 310 new agents. How many has the Republican-controlled General Assembly provided? 8. Crime in South Carolina is going through the roof. Law enforcement is being shortchanged, and they're going to let a woke social justice liberal come into their panel meeting and basically tell the head of the law enforcement division he's not doing his job. Something's wrong with this picture, folks, and guess what? It's not just the woke minority leader. It's the 4 Republicans sitting by doing nothing and doing nothing over the last 7 years to support law enforcement.
You talked about sentencing reform. Can you give me the 3 examples or just one example?
I didn't say anything about sentencing reform.
You did, because you talked about what you would tell Brian Sterling if he was sitting here, that his population has gone down from 25,000 to 15,000. You said that. That's sentencing reform.
I said, is there a correlation between prison population going down and crime going up?
So is there? I mean, you're the chief of SLED, so give me the 3 examples of that correlation.
I'm not a researcher. I'm a police officer. I'm just a common person that I look at the numbers, and if you tell me that our prison population is reduced from 24,000 or 25,000 down to 15,000 and our crime rate's going up, is there a correlation? I mean, you know,
but that's not true. You said there were a number of persons that you all were arresting that had served no time in jail, even though they had long. So give me the name. Give me 3.
I do not have the name in front of the representative, and you know I don't.
So that's fine. I'll let you get it back to me later on. You got a full staff. Y'all can get me the names of people that with long arrest of serious offenses have served no time in jail.
All right, now this is an interesting little turn of a phrase. Rutherford knows it isn't violent offenders who haven't spent a day in jail. He knows this. In fact, the reason he knows this is that he's one of the defense lawyers who gets a lot of these folks out of jail when they should be sitting in jail for violent crimes. He's one of the people whose repetitive use of judicial privilege, of legislative immunity, not having to come before judges, he abuses that so that he doesn't have to appear in court on behalf of his clients. So he should know a little bit about this. And he should know that we're not talking about violent offenders who haven't spent a day behind bars. Yes, these people have been in jail. And I want to talk about a few of these examples because Chief Keel, obviously a little bit of a deer in the headlights during that hearing at some points, didn't get to name some names, but guess what? I will name some names because these names matter. And again, it goes back to the basic issue of public safety in this state. The first name I want to talk to you about is Cassius Broadwater, Greenwood, South Carolina. Now, in June of 2010, Broadwater is accused of shooting and killing 2 women, one of whom the mother of his child. Now, both women sustained multiple gunshot wounds in this incident, again, which took place back in June of last year. Now, the previous May, Broadwater was let out of jail on an attempted murder rap, even after prosecutors told South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Frank Addy that they believed there was a gang affiliation to this attempted murder. So again, attempted murder, alleged gang affiliation, but he's out the door. And again, was that the right decision? While we think about that, let's think about the 2 women who paid for it with their lives. I also want to tell you about Albertus Lewis of Columbia, South Carolina. Now, back in August of 2020, Albertus Lewis, he took a child hostage, threatened to burn down an apartment complex, and he shot and wounded not 1, but 2 Lexington County deputies. Okay, now Albertus Lewis was also out on bond, but he wasn't out on bond for just any violent charge. He was out on bond for murder. Specifically the 2017 murder of 20-year-old Myra Sanchez, whose body was literally dumped outside of a hospital in Columbia, South Carolina. Again, does he deserve to stay in court? Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I go back to Rutherford and other lawyer legislators using their power to delay justice. And which is why I go back to Chief Justice Donald Beatty holding up courts, preventing them from doing their work during the COVID scandal. Yes, COVID was a big deal. Yes, there were precautions that needed to be taken, but justice in this state ground to a halt, and it's Beatty's fault. Now, I also want to tell you about one other person, Charles Clifford. We talk a lot about hate crimes in this state. People want to pass hate crime legislation, okay? I don't believe that. I think crime is crime, okay? But if we're going to talk about hate crime, I want to take you back to January and February of last year, where in Richland County, Charles Clifford and another accused criminal embarked on a multi-day crime spree in a Hispanic neighborhood. Now, they specifically targeted this Hispanic neighborhood, part of a turf war ongoing, multiple armed robberies, multiple home invasions, victims held at gunpoint. Okay, a serious crime spree, and there are multiple charges that both Clifford and his associate are facing in connection with this crime spree. But I want to back the tape up again. This guy has an attempted murder rap on his record, for which he was accused in 2015, along with a gun charge. 2018, strong arm robbery, possession of a stolen firearm. 2018, third-degree robbery. 2019, first-degree domestic violence, and another stolen pistol. Okay? But Circuit Court Judge Robert Hood let him out on a $50,000 bond. And again, to get that bond, you only have to put up 10%, right? $5,000. And of course, the entity which provided that bond to Clifford, Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Pretty fitting, don't you think? Now, I told you about some of these cases, but I also want to go back to arguably the most egregious example of excessive judicial leniency in this state. And that involves Lorenzo Bernard Young, who back in 2013 murdered 33-year-old Kelly Honeywell, who was a small business woman. Her only crime was coming in early to her bakery in 5 Points in the downtown Columbia, South Carolina region, opening her shop. Young and his friends were allegedly trying to break into another business. It was locked up tight. They preyed on Honeywell, shot and killed her, left behind 4 children. 4 children. She was a single mother of 4 children. Again, this is about public safety in this state, and whatever you want to say about Chief Keel, whatever you want to say about Representative Rutherford, they both made some good arguments in this debate. I would argue Representative Rutherford's were a little bit self-serving. But let me tell you, it's not about any of those arguments. It's about lives being cut short because our justice system is not working. It's not working for victims. It's not working for the public. It's not working for you, and it's sure as hell not working based on the amount of tax money we're putting